My guest today is Tom Corson-Knowles. Tom is an entrepreneur, blogger, and best-selling author of more than 20 books. He started his first business at age 13, and by the time he graduated from business school at age 22, he was earning a full-time income from his entrepreneurial endeavors. Tom is the founder of ebookpublishingschool.com and TCK Publishing. Tom's best-selling books include The Book Marketing Bible, The Kindle Publishing Bible, Secrets of the Six-Figure Author, and Schedule Your Success, among others. Tom is often quoted as saying, "You can achieve all of your dreams as an author if you're willing to master the three key areas of authorship: writing, publishing, and marketing." You can learn more about Tom and TCK Publishing at tckpublishing.com, and also contact Tom at tckpublishing.com/contact. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tom.
Thanks so much for having me, Kathryn. It's great to be here.
And it's so great to talk to you live because I've been listening to your YouTube channels and I get a lot of great advice, like how do I price my ebooks from you, and you have a great blog. So it's always so fun when you kind of know somebody in this virtual world to actually connect personally. So that's exciting for me.
Absolutely, me too. I love it.
And on that quote that you had about mastering the three areas of publishing, it's the writing, publishing, and marketing side. So I wanted to focus more on the publishing and marketing side today. Now, I will tell everyone that I'm 47. So I am sort of I'm a real paper person. Like, I like my books in my hands, and I'm not really a big Kindle person, but Tom, I know that you have really mastered the space. You're a lot younger than I am, and you've mastered the space of Kindle books. And what I've started to see, because I also have my MBA and I'm a big numbers person, I've seen that you can actually really mitigate your financial risks of publishing by going the ebook way. So can we talk a little bit about some of the advantages of going a paperless route, even for the people like me that love books in their hands? I think there's some important advantages that we should talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, if you look at any business, especially the book business, it's really about, okay, you have a product, and in this case, it's a book. How do we get distribution, right? How do we get our product from our hands, from our, a file sitting on our hard drive, on our computer, to actually get it out there into the world direct to consumers where they can actually go ahead and buy it, purchase it, so that you get paid and that they get that great product, that they get your book delivered, right? And so if you look at the global book industry right now for what's called trade books, which is pretty much, any kind of popular fiction, nonfiction, poetry, coffee table books, basically everything except for like textbooks and college school books and things like that. The trade market for books globally is about $80 billion a year. And ebooks have gone from basically 0% or less than 1% of the market about 12 years ago to now where it's about $20 billion a year globally. So it's like 25% of the market now. And then audiobooks now, digital audiobooks are about 1.7 billion a year. So those are growing about 2% now of the market and growing really fast. And so we're seeing this big shift now where, 15 years ago, no one even knew what an ebook was and no one was buying them, to now a huge part of that market is ebook sales. And so what that means, if you're a new author and you don't have a traditional publisher behind you, you don't have, tens of thousands of dollars to invest in buying premium space in bookstores, in Walmart and Costco and Target and all that, it means you don't have a way to compete with the major publishers in the arenas where most print books are sold. And so really, the way I started out was just, I was just a kid in my home office writing books on my computer. And I needed a way to get distribution, and so that's where Amazon came along. And Amazon had, of course, the Amazon Kindle program, and Kindle sales were just booming at the time I started publishing about 6 years ago, and they're still continuing to grow to this day. And so it's the place where you can go as a brand new author to publish an ebook, to have a level playing field where you're on the same page. So whether you self-publish a book with a $5 book cover, on Amazon, you're on the same page, at the level playing field as any other publisher, no matter how big their budget is, no matter what publisher is behind them. And so because there's that equal opportunity out there, you can succeed, basically working from home with almost no budget if you're smart and creative and resourceful, and if you've got a good book that people actually want to buy.
Okay, and Tom, what I like to do is I like to pull out little fun nuggets in the interview. And so what I'm going to say is nugget number one is that as an aspiring author, you are missing out of about a quarter of the market if you are not in the ebook marketplace. So that's nugget number one. And this whole idea of figuring out the distribution of your product from the, as a very first step one reminds me of Tim Ferriss said in the 4-Hour Workweek, like, don't work too hard on developing your product if you haven't first figured out how to get through the distribution channels. And the traditional distribution channels of, offset printing to warehouse to wholesaler, where the, Ingram or Baker and Taylor, then it goes to a library if it's Baker and Taylor, and then bookstores if it's Ingram. I mean, it's really convoluted. And by the time you get to the bookstore and to the consumer, a lot of the economics have been lost. And then there's this whole risk of things being returned because of consignment business. So that's a very, I think, difficult distribution model. I think most aspiring authors don't realize that. But what you're saying about the ebook is that you don't have the printing costs, you don't have that convoluted chain, and so there's more economics left for the author in the end.
Exactly, and that's why you can self-publish an ebook on Amazon for $2.99 or any other ebook platform, and you can earn like $2.06 every time you sell a book. Whereas if you have a traditional publisher and you sell a $25 hardcover book, you're lucky if you get $1 or $1.50 in royalties. So you can make way more money per sale selling a $3 ebook than a $25 hardcover book. And you can also sell a lot more copies because there are services like BookBub and Buck Books and and Free Booksy and all these other book promotion sites that you can use at a very low cost to sell hundreds or even thousands of books in a day. And these book promotion sites, like, they don't exist for print books. Like, you can't find a book promotion site online that will help you sell 50 or 100 print books in a day. But you can sell thousands of ebooks in a single day with a book promotion site because that's where the readers are. That's where the readers are going. And so there's so many more opportunities to market and promote ebooks as well for indie authors, for self-published authors. And so I'm not saying you should only have an ebook and not do a print book. I think you should do an ebook and a print book and an audiobook if it makes sense for your market and for your project. But when it comes to actually marketing your book and getting sales and getting traction from a new author with no fans to becoming an author with tons of raving fans, to do that without an ebook today is almost impossible. I mean, it's just so difficult to reach readers, and ebook readers are the easiest folks to reach because there are these book promotion sites out there, and there's so many other avenues to reach those folks very inexpensively. And
I do want to talk about the book promotion sites because I think that they're very powerful, and you're definitely an expert in that area. But before we go there, I want to address that aspiring author out there that's listening that has this dream, because a lot of people do have this dream of seeing their book in a bookstore, like on the shelf. And so I don't know if you have gone down the route of using Ingram Spark, but I think it's important for people to know that there is this Amazon print on demand, and then there's the whole Kindle distribution way, but there's also the Ingram's version of it, which is their print on demand arm. And if you can pull the book through, meaning have people go to a bookstore and say, I want this title, and it's available in Ingram Spark, you can actually achieve your dream of seeing your book in a bookstore without having to do that convoluted thing with offset printing, warehousing, big wholesalers, distributors, and so on. Is that something that you believe is worth it? Or do you just say, you know what, aspiring author, maybe it's time to kill that dream?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in the 80-20 principle, which basically says that 20% of your effort is going to give you 80% of the results in life. And that's true, it's pretty much true in every area of life, from farming to agriculture to business and industry, and especially publishing. And so when you look at distribution and book sales and profits that you're going to make as an author, 80% of your profits are going to be made with ebooks and with print-on-demand sales, which means physical books that you sell online. So for example, we have a client and we're selling over 1,000 print books a month, several thousand ebooks a month, and over 1,000 print books a month. And because we use CreateSpace print on demand, we earn a $19.99 sale price. We earn about $9, just under $9 in royalties every time we sell a print book. Now, if we went with Ingram or we went with any kind of printer, the way the economics work is we would earn less royalties per sale. So even if we did a big print run of 10,000 copies and got the print cost down really, really low on that book, because of the cost of fulfillment and shipping and warehousing and delivery and then Amazon selling fees, we would actually make less money per sale. So if you're selling a print book on Amazon, which currently sells more than half of all the print books in the United States are being purchased online, and the vast majority of those are being purchased on Amazon, then you're going to make the most profit per sale for a print book on CreateSpace, using CreateSpace's service. So, when you look at the 80-20 principle, it just, you're going to make so much more money doing it that way. If you print books and sell them in a bookstore, and assuming things go really well and you sell everything that you print, and you've got, a flawless distribution strategy where there's no waste and it's very efficient, and you got great quotes from printers, and you got the cost down as low as you possibly could, and you're really good at negotiating that because you worked so hard on that. You're lucky if you pull in $3-4 in profits per sale after all that's said and done, right? So it's just so much more profitable to sell books online. It's so much easier to sell books online. And what I recommend to folks is, like, if you can't be successful online, your chance of being successful in a bookstore is basically zero. So have some success with your online sales first and foremost, and then consider investing your profits and expanding into distribution in bookstores. Because if you try to do it the other way around, that's just a recipe for failure and disaster 99.9% of the time.
Oh, that's such a great nugget. I'm going to call that nugget number 2. And I'm a big believer also in the 80-20 principle. So nugget number 2 is follow the 80-20 principle, which is going to lead you to the ebook and POD route. And if you decide that it's your dream to have your book in the bookstores, know that you are operating in that 20% area, and that you're going to be on a very steep, inefficient curve that will probably not yield you a lot of return on your investment, both time and money. So that's a decision that you just have to make. But if you want to be efficient and effective and follow the 80-20 rule, it's really the ebook and the POD way of going.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the thing is, like, as an author, your real job, if you really boil it down, what you actually get paid to do is to create fans, right? To create fans that love you and love your work and are willing to buy from you. And so it's just so much easier today with social media and Facebook and technology and the distribution platforms like Amazon to actually do that online versus in a bookstore. Like it's like, imagine, having your book in 1,000 different bookstores. Okay, now you've got your book in bookstores, but how do you actually get people to go to that bookstore where traffic is declining almost every year? All independent bookstore traffic is actually increasing, but in general, bookstore traffic is decreasing. And so how do you get people, fans in Kansas and Utah and California and New York and Canada, how do you get them to go to a bookstore and to ask for your book and actually find your book and buy it, right? That's very hard to do. But if you focus on marketing online and building your fan base online, it's just so much easier. It's so much more cost effective. You don't have to, travel all over the country doing book signings and trying to get people to show up for a book signing. It's just so much easier to do it online by building your fan base online and focusing on that.
Okay, nugget number 3. This is really important because I think a lot of aspiring authors think that their number one job is to write. It's kind of that, like, I'm going to go off into the woods in a cabin and, I'm going to be a writer. And Tom, you said something really important. So nugget number 3 is that the author's number one job is to create fans. And I think that's extremely important. That's a mindset thing, and we need to get aspiring authors thinking that way. So let's dive into that. How do we, or what do you think are the most effective ways to create fans online?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I think first of all, you have to have a product, right? So you have to have a book. And I think a lot of folks, there's a lot of stuff going on in the publishing industry saying that, you need to start marketing your book 6 months before it's released. And I think that makes sense in some cases, and it certainly makes sense if you have a traditional publisher, if you've got a big platform, if you're building up to a really massive launch. But if you're a brand new author with 0 fans and you're self-publishing or going with a small press who doesn't really have a big marketing budget behind you, it doesn't make much sense to do that. Because in those 6 months where you're preparing to market your book, you don't have anything to offer fans, right? You have nothing. Maybe you just create a Twitter account and just create a Facebook page, but you don't have anything to give your fans that's substantial, right? And so once you have a book published, you can say, hey, go to Amazon and buy my book, and you can sell the ebook for 99 cents, or you can do a free promotion and give it away for free, and you can start to attract fans that way. So that's a really great way to actually attract fans, is with your book. using your book to attract fans. And so I think a lot of folks say, well, I worked so hard on this, I don't want to give away my book for $2.99 or 99 cents or free because I'm never going to make money that way. But it really depends on your market, right? So if you're writing romance, I mean, hundreds of millions of romance ebooks are purchased and bought and read every single year. All right, so hundreds of millions. So if you give away even 1 million, and it'd be really tough to give away 1 million books, but if you give away 1 million copies of a romance novel, you might say, well, I'm not making any money from that, but you're attracting fans, tons and tons and tons of fans. And the next time you release a book, they will buy your book. And so if I could give away 1 million copies of a book, I'd do it in a heartbeat, because that's free marketing. Right? What is marketing? Marketing is simply connecting with your customers. It's giving them something of value so that they know you, like you, and remember you. So there is no better marketing than getting actual people, real readers who love books like yours, to actually sit down and read your book. That is the best form of marketing you can possibly ever get. And so when you're a brand new author, I think the best way to do it is to start getting your book out there, getting the word out there about you and what you do. And if you have to give your book away for free, that's fantastic. That's wonderful. It's free marketing.
It's so interesting because I was just at an industry conference, and there was a mix of authors, of self-published authors, of hybrid publishers, and traditional publishers there. And there was this discussion around a timeline for launch, and there was this 6-month thing that you're talking about, and the buyers at Barnes & Noble are now 6 to 8 months out, and the whole thing. But it was also interesting because I came to the conclusion that there's this issue of platform when you're going for a traditional deal. And if you don't have a platform, you're unlikely to get a traditional deal. But then how do you get a platform? Well, the way you get a platform is you get a book, right? Is you have a really great book. And so it's like this chicken and the egg thing. And I'd rather just start with the chicken or whatever, one or the other. But if you don't have a platform, what you're saying, Tom, and I agree, is to go ahead and write your book and then be generous about it. And that's the way that you're going to build your market. In fact, I often think that we as authors are less selling our book and more selling the idea that someone should spend a couple of hours with us, right? Because time is so precious and we're so inundated with information that for somebody to actually sit down and read your book and read your words and get to know, like, and trust you, like that's what you're after. So folks, I would love, this is another one of these mindset things. I would love for you to start thinking about your book, if you don't have a huge platform already, to be one of the building blocks in creating the platform. And it's not about making money, it's about making connections. And if you have the opportunity, the lucky opportunity to give away 1 million books, jump for joy and throw a party.
Absolutely. And the thing is, when someone buys a book on an e-reader, like you said, it's about the time more than the money, right? Someone who clicks on their Kindle device or their iPhone and buys your book for 99 cents or $2.99 the ebook, right? It's not, for them, it's not a question of, should I spend the money on this? It's, should I spend the time on this? Should I spend the time? Is this book good enough? Is it the cover something I like? Is it attractive? Is it a good book description? Is it even is the book description even spelled accurately? Right? You see authors out there with books that there's typos all throughout their book description, and they wonder why they don't have sales. Right? So it's this simple question that everyone goes through when they're going to sit down to read a book: is it worth my time, right? And if you've read a lot of books, you've probably got a bookshelf or a Kindle device with dozens or even hundreds of books that you haven't finished yet, right? And so the question for you isn't, should I spend a couple dollars to buy this book? It's, should I spend the time to sit down and actually read it, right? That's the number one question folks ask. And so that's what you have to deliver to them. And that's why it's so important to focus not on the price, but on the value that you're providing, right? The rule of success in business is focus on adding value. The more value you add to your audience, the more you will get paid in the long run. And so that's what you want to focus on. And then the other thing I would say about timelines, you mentioned that 6 to 8 month timeline, that there's reasons why that has to be done in the traditional publishing industry, because of certain marketing opportunities. Like, for example, when you're a traditional publisher, like at TCK Publishing, we have to submit to Publishers Weekly and Midwest Book Review and Kirkus Reviews and stuff like 4 months before our book is even published, right? Because that's how long it takes them to actually go through that review process and to write a review. But if you're a self-published author, you don't have to go through any of that, and you actually, you can't submit to those review services, so you don't have that drawback. And so, if you're waiting 8 months to launch a book, There's authors like Jim Heskett, who I interviewed the other day. He's writing, he's a busy dad. He's got a kid. He's got a full-time job, 40 hours a week. He only works 1 to 2 hours a day on his writing, but he's pumping out a full-length novel 4 times a year, 4 books a year, full-length novels a year, working 1 to 2 hours a day as a self-published author. So while you're waiting to launch that first book for 8 months, other authors out there in your market are publishing 2 or 3 books in that time and working on their 4th one, right? And so they're building up their fan base so much faster. And so, with anything in life, you're going to get better at it the more that you do it, the more that you practice. And so if you're waiting for perfect timing, if you're waiting for the right time to launch your book, if you're waiting for the right opportunity, if you're waiting for the right publishing deal, if you're waiting for the right idea to hit you, you are going to be so far behind the curve. And so in my experience, the secret to success is just take action every single day towards your goals and make it happen, and don't wait for the perfect time, because there's never the perfect time to write a book or launch a book or market something. It's all about what can you do today to move forward, and if you every single day you focus on what can I do today to move forward and make progress, you will eventually get somewhere that's really worth going. But if you stall and wait and hesitate, you're going to get in the habit of stalling and waiting and hesitating your whole life, and then you're going to look back and say, hey, why didn't I do more? Why didn't I try more? Why didn't I strive more? Why didn't I have more fans? Why didn't I sell more books? Because you didn't put the energy and effort every single day to move the stone forward, to move up the hill, and to achieve your goals.
And it's so interesting. I totally agree that there's never going to be, like, the planets aren't going to align for you and say, like, message in the sky, it's time to write your book. Like, that's just not going to happen. Don't wait for it. Just go, right? That's sort of the mantra there, or the nugget there, just go. But let's talk about number of books. You were talking about that. And by the way, 4 books in a year with a full-time job does seem a little bit overwhelming to me, but I do know that each book tends to be more and more profitable, right? Because you're increasing your fan base, the launch becomes easier. Have you seen with yourself and all the authors that you've worked with that there is kind of like a turning point where maybe you're sitting down with somebody and you look at the likelihood of, okay, you're going to sell, this many books and you'll get, let's use that $2 return net, so you're selling it at $2.99 and you get $2.06 as a net on an ebook. So you sell, X number of books and it costs you this much between editing and cover design. So maybe the number comes out as a loss, right? And that's your first book. But then as you start to write more books, then there becomes a turning point where it becomes profitable more quickly. Do you think that there's sort of a magic number, like it's book number 3, or do you have advice on that front? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, it totally varies from author to author, project to project, book to book, right? We've got some clients with just 1 book that are earning a full-time income from royalties from just 1 book, right? And then we've got other clients who they've got 10 books and they're not earning a full-time income yet. So it really depends. But, in general speaking, if you're writing fiction, like thriller, fantasy, romance, sci-fi, mystery, if you're writing in any major fiction genre, usually it's like 7 to 10 books. So the averages are, if you have 7 books in a series, versus you're in a major genre versus an author who has 1 standalone novel in that same genre, you're going to earn about 4 times as much earnings per book that you publish with 7 books in a series versus 1 standalone novel. So if that's all you do is just write more books in a series, you're going to 4x your income right there by the time you hit 7 books, right, on average. So there's a lot of little things like that, writing books in a series versus writing standalone novels, writing multiple books versus just 1 book, right, that can dramatically increase your earnings on average. And so what I found with clients is that there's a lot of luck involved, right? It's not about how the number, I don't think. It's about, eventually you put yourself in a position where luck finds you, right? So, we have a client with just 1 book. And for the first, year and a half, he was selling about 100 books a month, which was great. I mean, very nice sales, 100 books a month. We were happy with that. And then we got a book club promotion. We got lucky. A book club accepted us. And then sales went from about 100 a month to several thousand sales a month. And it stayed that way for over a year and a half now. Right? We've got other clients,
Those book club deals are hard to get, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of luck involved in that, right? So it's like the timing, we didn't plan for 18 months into publishing that book that it would all of a sudden take off in sales, but, we were constantly submitting to book club. We were constantly looking for opportunities to promote the book. And when that opportunity came our way, it happened to do really, really well, right? And so we've got other clients with, 8 books and, just, not very good sales. And then all of a sudden the 9th book comes out and it gets, picked up by a blogger or a reviewer or someone, and just sales shoot through the roof. And then all the sales for other books rise as well. So there's a lot of luck involved in the publishing industry. And I think what really separates successful authors from unsuccessful authors is that they stick with it long enough and they focus on the activity that they can do every single day so the results come. I think most unsuccessful authors, they focus on results. They focus on sales. They focus on how many books am I selling this month? How much money did I make this month? How many fans do I have? How many Facebook followers do I have? And none of that matters because it's completely out of your control. You can't control how many people like your Facebook page. You can't control how many people buy your book this month. All you can control is what you do with your time, what you spend your time on. It's writing and marketing and promoting, and that's what you should be focusing on. And so, I think it's a long game. It's not an overnight success story. I don't know any author who just overnight became successful without putting the time and work and energy and effort into it. And so I think the key to long-term success is focus on what you can control. Don't focus on what you can't control. And what you can control is your activity. Are you writing today? Are you marketing and promoting your book today? Are you reaching out to connect with other authors in your genre to build relationships? Like, what are you actually doing on a day-to-day basis to build your business? Because if all you're doing on a day-to-day basis is checking your Facebook page and how many people like you and how many sales you got and checking your KDP sales reports, that's not taking you where you want to go, because it's not actually affecting the results in the long term. So you've got to focus on creating long-term results, and that means focusing on your day-to-day activity, the things that you can control day in and day out.
I think that is so true. And I think it's almost analogous to long-term investing. Like if you're investing for, your child's college education or something like that, you don't like sit there and watch all day where it's going, like each stock, how it moves. Instead, you make smart choices, and then you have your activities, throughout your day that helps to obviously create money so you can save more money and invest more money and then save up. But if you're just sitting there watching it go up and down, you drive yourself crazy because you can't control it. So I think that's interesting to say that it's the same with writing. Just focus on what you can control, and what you can control is your own activity. You can't necessarily control what people are doing on Facebook and what people are doing on Amazon, and if you're in the bookstores, what they're doing there. But Tom, you said something which was a great nugget, and this was the whole idea of series potentially being more profitable. And what this kind of had me thinking about is that it might actually affect how you structure your books. So I remember years ago, I had a call with a very, very well-known book coach, who was formerly with Random House, and she kind of said, this is how long a book should be. It should be 50,000 words to 80,000 words, and kind of gave me a very boxed in way of thinking about it. And then I read a lot, and then I started to notice over the years that books were becoming shorter, more bite-sized. You said more focused on value. Like, who cares how many pages it is? If it's delivering value, that's all people really want. So in your opinion, where do you see the sweet spot kind of being for book length, for delivering that? Do you think that books are getting shorter and that it's better, so that if you have an idea, maybe you could break it up into a series instead of having an 800-page book from the get-go?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the best way to answer this question is let's take a look at the most profitable book of all time, okay? And that would be Harry Potter, right? And so you can Google Harry Potter word count, and you'll see this little chart, and it shows you, the first book was 77,000 words, the second one was 85,000, the third one was 107,000, and then 190,000, and then 257,000, and then 168,000, and then 198,000, right? So, if an editor at Random House, or the same person who had given you that advice, had said, hey, J.K. Rowling, you have to do this book, it has to be this word count, I don't think Harry Potter would have been nearly as successful as it was, right? And so again, it's all about, success in business is about principles. It's not about strategies or tactics. So the principle is add as much value as you possibly can to your audience. We talked about that, right? So that's what J.K. Rowling did. She didn't hold back and say, well, this fifth book, I've written so much already, and I'm just going to write, a 50,000 word one and crank it out and take my big advance and my big royalties from it. She said, no, I'm going to put 257,000 words in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix because I love this story and it's so amazing. I want to share all this awesome stuff with my audience, right? So I think that's what you need to focus on. Again, is day in, day out, focus on the activities that are going to add value to your audience. And so, there's a reason why traditional publishers have routinely put those kind of boxes around, word count and page count for books, because, their whole modus operandi up until, ebooks came out, and even still to this day, is pretty much the same. Is like, they have a physical book, right? They don't look at books as like ideas or content. They look at it as like a physical product. So what is the dimensions of your book? Because they got to print these things, and they got to ship them, and they got to store them in warehouses, and they got to put them on bookshelves, and it has to fit on the bookshelf, and it has to, fit neatly in this little box. And so for them, it's really about, the book business is mostly about, how do you organize these physical things called books in a way that's actually going to sell through and be the most profitable for them, right? They're not concerned about, how do they add the most value to their readers? That's not really what the traditional publishing model has been about. And so I think the cool thing about self-publishing and independent publishing and ebooks now is that it's so completely turned around the industry, is that now authors can really focus on what actually matters, which is writing great books that readers care about. And so readers don't care if your book is 5,000 words or 500,000 words. If they love it, they're going to keep reading it. If they don't, they're not. And so I think that's what you should really focus on when you write a book. And so when you go through that editing phase and you look at your book and you say, hey, I've got 5,000 words or 50,000 or 500,000 words, say, is this the best book I can possibly deliver to my readers? Like, what else can I do to add more value? And so in some cases that means, cutting the word count, because you've got fluff and you've got filler, you've got stuff that needs to come out, so that you can really just focus on providing the best reader experience possible and remove all the fluff that takes away from that. In other cases, it means adding more content, adding more value to your book, because there's more stuff you can add in there that would actually help your audience. So I think it really all is about who is your audience, what do they want, and how can you give them even more than they expect.
And that's so interesting, because as I read that Harry Potter series, I didn't even realize the books were getting longer and longer. It was just that I was so into them that it was just like this wonderful, wonderful experience. And when it was over, I was sad. But also, that's the traditional publishing route. And I've heard you say, Tom, that that's probably available to maybe 1% of the population because of the need of, number one, the size of the platform, and like you said, that it has to fit inside of a box. Like, they ask you about your trim size before they even ask you about some of the key issues in terms of value in the book. I mean, that's not entirely true. There's that whole book proposal, and it's really just about marketing. But I do believe that traditional model is available to a very, very small percentage of aspiring authors. And as you were saying with Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling, she had more weight and more freedom as a traditionally published author as she gained more power as her books were selling. So she could have any length book by the time she was done with that series. So that was a great story. And I want to go into two more areas before we wrap up. One is, in the beginning of the interview, you mentioned the importance of book promotion sites, and I think those are in particular this whole idea of building this online base, this online fan base. I want to talk about book promotion sites and some of your favorites and how aspiring authors can learn more about them. And then I want to go into TCK Publishing, because I'm listening to kind of what you're doing and that whole idea of submitting to reviews, and that's 4 months out with Kirkus and Publishers Weekly and all that. So it sounds kind of traditional, but I know that you're so entrepreneurial. So I want to kind of get a sense of really what TCK Publishing is all about and what you do for authors. Does that sound like a good path for the time we have left?
Right. So there are actually hundreds of book promotion sites out there, and some of them are amazing, some of them are not so great, but I've actually got a list on my blog, and so we can post those links for folks to see. But there's two main kinds of book promo sites. So one are sites that promote free books, and the other kinds are sites that promote discounted books, and some do both. So if you're doing like a 99-cent or $1.99 or $2.99 discounted ebook promotion, those paid book promotion sites are going to be the best for you. If you're doing a free promotion, you're going to have to submit to the free book promotion sites. So, the biggest one by far is BookBub. If you can ever get into BookBub, always take it every single time without fail. It's always been profitable for us. BuckBooks is another really great one. And then there's like another handful of like 5 to 10 that are pretty good that we use almost every time. But again, those lists are on the blog, so you can actually go through every single site and see, make sure it's the right fit for your genre and so forth. Because some sites like don't do erotica, and some sites only do nonfiction and so forth. So definitely do your research on that and test things out, because it's constantly changing. And so some book promotion sites are growing really fast, and some are kind of like withering and dying on the vine. So definitely test it out for your books and see what works best for you and for your audience.
Great. Well, if you've got, and I know you do have some great videos and you have blog posts, so I'll just make sure to include those links. And then let's use our time then to talk more about TCK Publishing and kind of where you see yourself on that spectrum of traditional publishers on one side, self-publishing on the other. Then we've got this hybrid in the middle. Sort of where do you fall and how do you find yourself offering unique value to the authors that you bring in?
That's a great question. So we basically started as a self-publishing service because the reason I started the publishing company was because I had done really well self-publishing my own books, and other authors started to reach out to me on social media and ask me for advice, then asked me eventually to actually publish their books. And so I just started basically doing what I had done for my own books for other authors. So it's basically a self-publishing service, and I didn't charge anything for it. We just split royalties 50-50. And then what happened was it blew up really fast, and so we started to get so many submissions, we couldn't even handle them all. So I said, hey, the best way to kind of reduce the number of submissions and make this more manageable for us is we got to start charging a fee. So we put this upfront fee, that's $500 upfront fee, to kind of weed out people who weren't really serious and committed about their career as an author. And that worked for a while. And then a while ago, we realized that those fees was less than 1% of our revenue, and it was blocking us from being what's called quote unquote a traditional publisher. We were basically what's called a vanity publisher or subsidy publisher because we were charging fees, and the fees were almost completely insignificant in terms of our overall revenue from our book sales. And so we actually no longer have a fee now. So now we are technically a traditional publisher. So we pay 50% royalties to authors. We split everything 50-50. There are no fees whatsoever. So we'll do your ebooks, your print books, your audiobooks for you, distribution, marketing, promotion. And now we have access to things like, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus Reviews, Midwest Book Reviews, and other industry book review services, and NetGalley, and all kinds of really cool stuff that we can use to promote books that, if you're a self-published author, you don't really have access to a lot of those industry resources, because basically the big publishers all got together and created these industry associations, as folks do in pretty much every industry. And they wanted to kind of limit competition. They wanted to keep out the small publishers and small presses and indie authors out of the major kind of, as much as possible to kind of limit competition. I mean, that's just kind of how industries work. And so now we have access to pretty much everything a traditional publisher has access to, but we pay, 6 times as much in royalties, and we don't charge a fee. And so I really look at TCK Publishing every day, like I said, for readers, what is the focus in businesses? How do we add more value to our audience? And so that's what I've been focused on from day one with TCK Publishing, is how do we add more value to our audience? And so where I look at us now is we are positioned as, I think, the best deal in the industry for authors, because we don't charge a fee, we pay so much more in royalties, and we invest so heavily in our clients to actually help you build your author platform and build your brand. And I think, it's all about, for us, the long-term success. So every client that comes aboard, I tell them, look, you're not locked in for life with us, so it's only a 5-year contract. But our goal of the company is to have you as a client for life, so that every book you publish for the rest of your life, I want you to publish with us. And so we don't lock them in. We don't have to do it that way, but that's the goal. So we want to make our clients so happy and so thrilled with their success that they just keep publishing book after book after book with us, not because they have to, but because they know that's the best way to sell more books and get more distribution and build their fan base. And so we invest really heavily in teaching our clients everything. We'll set up your website for you. We'll set up your email marketing campaigns for you. We'll help you with your branding. We'll help you understand, do your market research to understand actually who is your audience. I think that's the biggest thing most new authors just completely skip over, the step of market research, right? And the best way I found to do market research really quickly, really simply, really easily is go to Amazon.com, type in keywords related to the type of books that you're thinking about writing or publishing. So if it's a romance novel, type in, vampire romance novels, and then read the reviews for the top 100 romance novels or books in your market on Amazon, and read every single review on Amazon, every single review, 1-star, 5-star, 3-star, every review. Have a notebook with you and write down all the things readers love about those books in your market, and write down all the things readers hate about those books in your market. And what you'll find out when you go through this process is you'll get a crystal clear image of who your readers are and what they actually want. And you'll also start to see opportunities. You'll start to see, areas in the vampire romance market where other authors haven't explored these types of storylines or these types of characters or these types of plot devices and so forth. And you can experiment with new things that other folks haven't done in your market before. And that's how you build raving loyal fans, by doing something a little bit different than what everyone else is doing. But it's really hard to get to that point unless you understand who your audience is and who your customers are. So we focus really heavily with our clients on getting them to understand what actual genre or subgenre are they in, what is their actual market, who is their ideal reader. And then when it comes to marketing their books, we really focus on how do we find those people, right? Because the way you find, vampire romance readers is totally different than the way you're going to find sci-fi readers or self-help readers or, Christian inspiration readers, because it's a completely different audience demographic. That's one of the things that's really fascinating to me about the publishing industry is that readers in different markets are completely different, right? Like if you have a supplement company, the audience for a, neurotropic, like a brain enhancing supplement versus a, muscle building supplement is not that much different, right? It's pretty similar, but the audiences for books and different genres is completely different. And so you really have to understand your market and your specific niche or your specific subgenre to understand how you can actually sell lots of books. And so that's what we teach our clients and show them and walk them through every step of that process so they can actually be successful long term. Because if you're publishing romance novels and marketing them the same way that you would market a self-help book, it's going to be really tough to find your fans. It's going to be really tough to build a platform because you're going about things in a way that doesn't work for your market.
That's such a great nugget right there. And folks, what Tom is just explaining is that your target market research is right there at your fingertips in the form of Amazon reviews. So that's a great nugget. And then I have another sort of final question. It's in two parts, and it's about TCK Publishing. So the first question, or of the part of overall question, is a lot of times people think of traditional publishers as giving an advance to authors. So I wanted to know if you do that. And then the second thing is, do you have a hurdle that people need to jump over? Like, do they need to have a certain level of platform in order to be accepted by TCK Publishing?
Yeah, great question. So right now we are not paying advances. Just doesn't really make sense to do so, especially because a lot of our clients are debut authors. So like we work, we don't care if it's your first book or your 50th book. We want to work with you long term to help you build success long term. And remember, we talked about before, it's like 7 books until most folks actually get some kind of success, especially in major fiction genres, right? So it's going to take you time to build your platform, and so we don't pay advances for new authors and new books. And then what's the second question?
Is there a hurdle? So if somebody's listening and says, oh my gosh, I would love to publish with Tom and TCK Publishing. It sounds like what they do, offers so much value to the aspiring author, and I want some help, and they want to apply. Do they need to be thinking about some kind of level of platform strength before they submit to you through your submissions process?
Right. No. And so no, there's no platform size you have to have. Like I said, we'll actually build your website for you. We'll help you set up your email marketing campaigns from the beginning. We'll help you do your market research, understand your audience. So what we really look for is just great books and great writers, and writers who are passionate about writing. So so we do have submission guidelines, and they're pretty detailed. So you can go to tckpublishing.com/submission-guidelines to look at the submission guidelines and then actually submit your manuscript for a review. But basically, we're just looking for great writers who are passionate. And I tell folks all the time, it's not about how great is your first book. Like, I want to see your 6th book. I want to see your 15th book, right? I want to see who you can become 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now as you go down this journey, and understand your audience and make your audience as happy as you possibly can. And so for us, it's a long-term game. And so that's what we're looking for. Really, it's more, for us, it's less about the book deal than it is about the author, right? We want partnerships. That's why we pay you 50% royalties, because it's like a partnership for us. It's like a lifelong business partnership. And so we're looking for partners who share our values, who care about your audience, who care about the work that you do and love what you do and want to get better at it every single day. And so if you're that type of person, then it might be a good fit for us. You should definitely check out our submission guidelines, submit your manuscript. And the other thing that we do is we provide a free sample edit for everyone that submits. So, if you submit a manuscript and you've never had a professional editor before, we'll actually have a professional editor go through and provide a free sample edit for you and tons of comments and feedback to actually help you improve. And that's not the end of the road for us. Like, I know a lot of other publishers, if you submit a manuscript to them and they reject you, that's it. You're done. They're never going to receive it again. For us, we're like, okay, take this back to the workshop, hire a professional editor, get some beta readers, work on this, revise these sections, and then submit it to us again. Like, we want to see what you can do with it if you put in the extra work and effort and time into it, because it's not about how good is the first draft of your book. It's about how good is the book when you publish it. And so it doesn't matter where you are now. It's all about where you're going. And that's really our philosophy.
You are such a fresh voice. It's a refreshing voice in this industry. A publishing conference that I was just at, there was one of the speakers was talking about her depressing life as an acquisitions editor at a very large publisher. And she said it became sort of a soul-crushing job because she would see these great books and book ideas come in, but they would get rejected because the author did not have the platform. And she said it just was so like money, big business oriented and soul crushing. And so to hear you say that what you're looking for is you're looking for passion, you're looking for value, and you're in this for the long run, you've got the patience, and that you're really partnering with authors, I just find that extremely refreshing. Having been subjected to some of the snobbery that you can find in other parts of the industry. So I just want to personally thank you for what you're doing. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that are listening that will be looking at that website link. So say it again where they can go to submissions. And of course, you can find out more about Tom at tckpublishing.com. And he's got his contact right there at tckpublishing.com/contact. But again, tell us where the submissions, is it just /submissions?
Yeah, it's tckpublishing.com/submission-guidelines or /submissions will work as well.
Okay. Well, any last things that we didn't cover that you'd like to share with our audience? You've been such a great participant in this summit and with so much value to offer.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I would say focus again on what can you do today to move forward, to make progress. I think that is absolutely crucial. Like, you have to develop good habits to be a successful creative person, to be a successful author, because again, it's all about the long term. And so there's a lot of folks who can write a book in a short period of time or write 2 books in a year. But it's the folks who stick with it year after year after year and consistently make progress towards their goals that become wildly successful. And so if that's what you want, if you want to become a full-time author, if you want to earn a full-time income, if you want to quit your job and become an author and live off of royalties, that's what it takes. It takes that commitment to daily activity. And so what I recommend for everyone is look at your calendar every week. Install that habit of looking at your calendar every week and scheduling your writing time and scheduling time to market and promote your book, scheduling time for the key activities that are going to move your career forward. And then every day, brainstorm and ask yourself, well, what can I do today to increase my income? What can I do today to become a better writer, a better author, a better publisher? And if you do that on a daily basis, you will make progress, and I guarantee you'll be happy with the results a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because how could you not be happy if every day you're moving forward and making progress?
I love it. So patience, commitment, habits, such great parting advice. So again, thank you so much, Tom. You're such a busy person, so we so appreciate the time that you've shared with us today.
Thank you, Kathryn. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you and everything you're doing with the summit to educate other authors and writers out there. And you're just such an inspiration to everyone. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.